Today we're going to talk about how we can permanently rid ourselves of frustration and reach almost any goal. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Cumro. I'm a developmental functional neurologist. I work with people to develop the connectivity of their brain. So we work with people with autism or autoimmunity, allergies, small business owners, but we help them to connect different parts of their brain, help it mature to allow them to get out of the same cycles that they've been in, maximize the capabilities of their neurology, and that in turn leads to more success with whatever they're trying to do, whether that's academic performance, behavioral performance, or in the case of business, more success. So what is frustration? Frustration is just like stress. There are so many different causes of what frustrates us, and everybody's a little bit different. It may be work, it may be traffic, it may be family, it may be our finances, or whatever else. But frustration is something that is there frequently. It's something that's different for everybody. So what frustrates me probably doesn't frustrate you. What frustrates somebody else is different than both of us. So it's got that dynamic to it that really makes it kind of hard to narrow down. But there are some common patterns that we see. So frustration tends to lead to a little bit more left prefrontal cortex firing. And when we have that left prefrontal cortex firing, we tend to ruminate on things. So if we're frustrated with something, we tend to focus on it. And that's obviously a bad thing, not only because it's frustrating, but because that frustration is going to lead to more frustration. And the reason for this is the left brain is more convergent in thinking, so it becomes more and more focused the more we fire it. You look more and more at the details, and this is awesome because we need that. We have to have that. If we don't have that, then we're unable to continue to move forward and pay attention to the small things to get us to our goals. But we need to be able to fire that right side as well. That right side is more divergent in its path, so it opens up a different set of possibilities. Instead of looking at this and saying, why won't this work, why won't this work, why won't this work, and trying the same thing over and over again, it gives us that option to look at different things. When we can open up that different perspective, it's creativity, right? When we can come up with creative thinking, then it helps us get rid of frustration. It helps us get over some of that other stuff. So, it gives us that ability to look at what is another option to go about this to actually get rid of our frustration. So, what does this look like in somebody with, say, dyslexia, or somebody with types 2 or 3 ADHD or autism or autoimmunity or things like that? Those tend to have patterns. Everybody's patterns are different. It depends on which networks are affected. It depends on the maturity of the brain, like the development, how far along you've gotten in that, different factors like that. But in general, when we look at people with right brain dominancy, they tend to have that bigger vision. They're able to look at the big picture. In business terms, they're looked at as visionaries. They see the future. They can look at it and create something that nobody else has created. But they don't necessarily have the detailed side of thing, what they refer to in business as operators. The operators on the left side are more detail oriented. They are able to take a task and do this and this and this, and they'll just hammer it out until it's done no matter what, right? We need both of those to come together. So that person with the right brain picture might not be detail oriented enough, or they might not have enough motivation to continue down a path. So they might be the person that sees a ton of different ideas that could work. I mean, they may be very, very successful. Everybody else is like, that's a great idea, why hasn't somebody done that? But they get bored with it, or they get frustrated with it, and they move on to something else. The left brain, on the other hand, they get an idea and they just start going to work, and they might not be able to see when they hit a roadblock a way around it. So they just keep hammering and keep hammering. And these are the people that are more likely to be like workaholics or things like that. They're just drivers. They're constantly driving toward that goal. Now, both of those can lead to frustration. Why? Because they can hold us back from getting what we really want. Everybody wants to be successful, right? If you have the big vision but you can't get there, that's frustrating. When you are able to just hammer out the details and want somebody to give you the big picture, that's frustrating. It doesn't matter which boat you're in. So we need to come up with some different tools to actually do that. And psychology books are everywhere. We look at self-help books in a bookstore, and they are everywhere. And they are a great resource. I own a ton of them. I love reading those things. That's a guilty pleasure, I guess. But we have to have the neurology functional before we go to the psychological piece. Why do we have to do that? If you look at a computer, you've got the hardware. If the hardware is not there, you can't put on the software, right? If the software is not there, you can't give it commands. So we have to have all of these pieces. And that's why, people are like, well, can I look at imaging and see how functional my brain is? Not for the most part. If you're looking at just a general MRI or a CAT scan or different things like that, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. The brains of people with autism or autoimmunity or ADHD look very similar to those without those diagnoses. So we've really got to look more in depth. Now, if you were to look at QEEG or functional MRI, that would show some differences on it. But we have to have the hardware in place. The software is that connectivity, the maturity of the brain, the ability for those different areas to connect and drive you forward. And you have to have speed, you have to have timing, you have to have coordination and balance between all of those to actually have the most functional outcomes. After that, then you can drive the put the commands in and get out what you want. And that's the psychological piece. But we've got to have all of these other pieces. And that middle piece is really what I focus on, is connecting the different parts of the brain. Now, what is often thrown out there in motivational speaking is you're either growing or you're dying. And I don't know that I totally agree with this. I think that there is room for people to perpetuate in their own patterns. And I think you see this a lot. I think you see a lot of people that get stuck in their same abilities and they end up with the same outcome. And over time we obviously want to grow, but does that mean we're dying? Obviously not. What I think is a more apt description of this is we either grow or it feels like we're dying. If we have that frustration, we're either growing or we're frustrated about where we're at. And one of the things that you can do is look at what pattern you're on. When we are successful, we tend to have more successes. When we focus on what we have that is good, we tend to have more good happen. When we focus on what is bad, we tend to have more bad happen. How many times have you seen somebody who has a bad week and that leads to a bad month, and that's, oh man, I've just had a rough year. It perpetuates. It continues to go. And we've got to get out of that. And that's really where we have to bring in the both sides thinking. So what are things that you can do? You could do what Zig Ziglar called automobile university. If you're frustrated with traffic, sit there and learn while you're doing it. You're getting something out of it. You're moving yourself forward as you go. That's going to help create different pathways in the brain. It's going to help connect different areas, and that can help you move forward. When you're looking at your family, if you have a messy house and that frustrates you, we've all been there where we feel like nobody else can clean the house. And is that true? Absolutely not. Finding those areas where somebody else is doing that is a great place. But also look at the experiences that you get to have because you didn't focus on cleaning that up right away. Maybe you got more time with the kids. Maybe you got to go out and enjoy an event with the kids. Maybe you got to do something with your significant other. Look at the positives of the situation. Don't look at the mess itself. This is what Dan Sullivan calls the gap in the game. If you look at where you're at now and where you want to be, there's a giant gap in there. And it's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to say, man, I've got so much progress that I need to make. That's frustrating. But when you reframe this and you look at the gain, how much have you gained toward yourself? Where did you start at? Where are you at now? You're looking at that difference rather than how much further you still have to go. Some of these positive reframes make a world of difference in the frustration world. If you are frustrated and you change the way that you look at it, it really, really does it does make a huge, huge change in all of your frustration levels. So if you are curious as to what your balance is, are you more right brain dominant? Are you more left brain dominant? And get a better picture and better understanding of yourself so you can put together better strategies to get where you need to be. In the website listed below or off to the side or wherever it's at, in my bio there, the hemispheric checklist is something that you can download, something that you could take the little test on your own, figure out where your balance is at. Obviously, I would love to have you as a subscriber, like and share this video so we can help more people with it. If you don't want to do that, wait a few seconds and we've got more success-oriented things that are going to pop up for you in our playlist.